I've completely lost my train of thought. Okay, we're back. The stream is a go. The chat is ready to display messages.
Urge viewers to have the same compassion for the president as you would for a friend with lung cancer.
And as Intercept's Glenn Greenwald notes, maybe, just maybe, it's possible Democratic leaders don't really believe some of the things that they've said about President Trump over the past 4 years. For example, calling him a racist, a fascist tyrant, all for political advantage. Co-founding editor at The Intercept, Glenn Greenwald.
Well, now that's an interesting take. I would actually think it's the opposite, that they don't actually wish him well, and they don't believe what they're saying when they send him well wishes. Huh.
Joins us now to explain how they sort of reconcile those two messages. Glenn, it's great to see you.
Good to see you, Glenn.
Good to be with you guys.
Absolutely. So just lay out the argument that you were making in the piece here.
So I've always had a distaste for the practice of liberals, Democrats anointing themselves the resistance from the very beginning of the Trump presidency, because typically the resistance is a term used for oppositional movements that are endangered by a tyrant or a despot. It's something, for example, that got applied to...
Now, I halfway agree with him there. But I mean... It's because that the Democrats haven't responded appropriately to what is an actual existential threat. Not that the Democrats are being hyperbolic in their language or leftist. I mean, is he lumping in people like me with the Democratic establishment like Rachel Maddow? Because that's an odd thing to do. But now, I even thought the resistance name was pretty fucking stupid, at least for establishment Democrats to use. And I was working for a right-wing radio host at the time that Donald Trump won. And one of the things that I came up with for his brand was that hashtag resistance is futile or something like that. That would have been the tagline for his online show. Resistance is futile. So, like, even I was, like, mocking them using the term resistance.
Jews who fought so valiantly in the Warsaw Ghetto against the Nazis, or against the French who were fighting Nazi occupation under the Vichy government. And so it seemed like a very inappropriate and self-glorifying...
And Glenn Greenwald knows. He's well aware. I believe he does live in Brazil at the moment and is being persecuted by a fascist government.
Term, because the implication is the U.S. is no longer a democracy where you can vote the president out of office, that it's now actually a dictatorship where to oppose him or to criticize him.
We're getting ready to find out. Joe Biden is almost certainly going to win by at least 5 or 7 million votes. Can you vote the president out of office? We will see. I've said all along, that's going to be the issue. I think he's going to lose the election. Now, is he still going to be the president at this time next year? You know, if he doesn't die, because we are on...
Trump dies of COVID watch.
You in the kind of danger that resistance fighters typically have been in. And lately, that rhetoric has escalated rather significantly as the election approaches, where it's now commonplace in Democratic discourse to explicitly say that Trump is a fascist dictator, and even to invoke Hitler and Nazism to suggest that that's the proper prism through which we ought to understand the Trump presidency.
There are a lot of parallels with Nazism, the American Nazi movement especially, people like George Lincoln Rockwell and their fascist movement in the mid-20th century.
And if that's the case, if Trump is some kind of a fascist...
Okay, I'm glad he threw that qualifier in there, because Glenn Greenwald is a smart man. I hope that ultimately he is doing the criticism, but he's coming at it from the opposite way.
Dictator who is posing to end American democracy and freedoms, or has already done so, who puts dissidents in danger, then you would expect the reaction to news that he has a fatal disease and might die not to be one of sorrow and lament, but one of joy and celebration.
And jubilation, kind of like we've been here on the Troll Patrol.
That's typically how people react.
That's a real
dictators
resistance.
Are ill, or when they're in danger, or when they die. And so there's this obvious tension, this conflict between, on the one hand, claiming Trump is like Hitler, or is imposing fascist white supremacy tyranny on the United States, and on the other hand saying, we wish you a speedy recovery, Mr. President. We hope that you get...
But once again, like, it's not Nancy Pelosi and shit saying that he's a fascist dictator and stuff. Their language is never that strong. So it's kind of lumping in the left wing with goddamn centrist liberals.
Get back really soon to the fascist tyranny and genocide that you're imposing on the United States. And I thought it was worth exploring what accounts for that tension.
Well, what does account for that tension, really, Glenn? I mean, what, and actually,
cognitive dissonance.
What type of political discourse do we want? I actually want the one where we, generally we're like, oh, the democratically elected leader, hope he gets better. Even if we disagree with him, get out there. Even if you want to see him, then he can be voted against. I mean, what does a good political discourse around something like this look like in a democracy? And how undermining has it been, the type of rhetoric that you're talking about there?
See, that's a really good question. Like, I like Sauger and I don't like Sauger. Excellent question.
Well, in general, I agree with you. I think that not only our political system, but we as human beings are healthier if
that might have been
we are
his
not
feed.
wishing death upon other people, if it's not standard or commonplace for us to celebrate the suffering of other human beings. I think that when we start doing those things, it coarsens not only the society, but also ourselves. And so in general, I think it is a very important aspiration to say that no matter how much we disagree with someone politically, we're going to resolve those political differences not through violence or wishing death on the other on someone, because that can lead to very negative results, but through political processes, through democratic competition, through debate and words and discussion rather than death. But the assumption of the question is that we have a working democracy. If we actually have somebody who...
There you go. Now we're hitting the main point here.
Gets elected and then proceeds to dismantle the mechanisms of democracy and does start to impose tyranny, fascist dictatorship, then I'm not sure that it is true that it's healthy to say that then recovers and gets healthy. Maybe it is healthier to say, oh, we hope that person dies, or we're going to celebrate if they do. That's what people do in tyrannies when their dictator dies.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. I agree with Glenn Greenwald there. Let's leave it at that. Who knows what he says after that? All right, so we got a few minutes until the debate. I wanted to cover the Jonathan Price story because apparently he defended the police. Wrote in a Facebook post, with all the tension and animosity going on with race, I'm on the fence. There were times I should have been detained for speeding. Outstanding citations. Sounds like shitty cops. Outdated register, dozing off at a red light. Shit, man, you sound dangerous as fuck. Passed a sobriety test. Okay, well, if you passed a sobriety test and still got to go where you're headed, that's pretty cool. Never got that kind of energy from the Popo. Man, I am fucking sorry that you got that kind of energy from the Popo, and now you ain't here to fucking speak about what you think. This fucking sucks. But it's always the ones that believe in God and talk about prayer and shit. I'm telling you that God shit rots people's brains. I'm glad that you had never experienced it, man, but it's sad that you experienced it when it was too fucking late. I sure wish you were still here with us, brother. We're going to keep an eye on that story. That happened on Saturday. He was at a gas station. He was trying to break up a fight. And as he was walking away, the cop shot him with a taser and then shot him in the back like 3 times. In front of witnesses, in broad daylight, in this small-ass town. I'm just flabbergasted by all this shit. And I'm tired of having to do these stories over and over and over again. It's like every day on Facebook, I'm seeing videos like this.
What? You about to do what?
You out of the car
No,
and take
say
you
what
to
you just
jail.
said. Say what you just said.
Right here, it's on camera,
Say
bud.
what you just said. I don't
said-
see your light on.
I said to get
Your
your
light's
hat.
not on, officer.
It's
You're-
on top of it, bud. You ain't gonna see
I just saw the top of it.
Here's the deal. All he's asking you to do is
Get your
provide
supervisor.
identification.
Get your
Supervisor's
supervisor.
on his way.
Good. I'm glad. I'll talk to the sergeant. Thank you.
You're fine.
All right. Thank you.
No. No, I flashed my lights at him trying to get him to turn his lights on as he came down the street. I was just going to give him a warning. Turn your lights on.
So now that's what it was. He didn't have his lights on. And if you're, I've done that before. If you're in like a metropolitan area and there's a lot of lights, and you've got, because I had for the longest time I had a truck and it had a thing you turn the lights on and off. Because a lot of them are automatic now, and you don't have the option to turn them off. But if you're driving down the road, you don't even fucking know because it's so well lit. You don't know your headlights are on or off.
Well, that's fine. I don't care what you give me, but you're not gonna sit up here and disrespect me in front of my family. In front of my family. All right.
Oh my goodness.
All right. So no, you're not being a public servant talking about you want to F and do something to me.
Oh yeah.
Take your badge off. I bet you won't do it.
What's that?
Take your badge off. You won't do it.
I love this guy.
Take your gun badge off. I bet you won't do it. And I won't go to jail.
If I do all that, you gonna step out?
You dang on right.
We'll see.
I'd pay to watch it.
I'd be more than happy to meet you without my badge and gun on.
That's fine.
I would want to see that almost as much as I'm excited to see fucking Pence and Kamala Harris here in a little bit.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I bet you won't win. I bet you won't win.
Now,
I bet you won't win. I bet you won't win. Move out the way. Thank you. Come over here. Come over here, please. Thank you. Just back away. Can you ask him to move? Please. Can I talk to you?
Fucking love it. That dude is so awesome. Now hold on. Let's get the fucking story on this shit. That happened in Bristol, Virginia, or maybe Bristol, Tennessee. The city is in 2 states, so I don't know which side of the line it was on. That is where that's close to the area that I went to college in. So that's how I know about all this. Let's watch the fucking loading ad.
Friday night leads to a police officer's suspension. That word from city officials. We know of tempers flaring between a Bristol, Virginia police officer and...
Oh, really? I'd heard about that event. Threats of violence. Interesting.
And a driver that same night in question. Portions of that encounter caught on cell phone video. News 5's Angelique Arentalk breaks down the incident that's now circulating online.
Tense moments captured on camera Friday night in Bristol, Virginia. It happened at this gas station on Commonwealth Avenue.
Get your supervisor. Get your supervisor.
On his way.
Good. I'm glad. I'll talk to the sergeant. Thank you.
You're fine.
All right. Thank you.
This is cell phone video from Alex Shan Sr. It was taken just minutes after Officer Eric Hinkey pulled him over for driving with no headlights.
Eric Hinkey, what a name. Officer Hinkey.
Flashed my lights in trying to get him to turn his lights on as he came down the street. I was just going to give him a warning, turn your lights on.
He came up to my car. He asked me,
Love this dude.
do I know why I was being pulled over? I said, no. I said, I guess I'm too sexy.
Shan says he was trying to lighten the mood. Then, as this portion of the video shows, the conversation got heated on both sides.
Take your badge off. You won't do it. Take your gun. Take your gun.
I know, that's exactly what it was. That little dick cabin cop got pissed off that man said because he's too sexy. I love this dude. I want to be friends with him. Alex, brother, I dig you, man.
I'm better, but you won't do it.
I'd be more than happy to meet you without my badge and gun on.
That's fine. Let's do it. Let's do it. I bet you won't win.
I don't think you would.
I bet you won't win.
Some of the people who watch the video might say that you should have backed down, you should have backed off. What do you have to say to those people?
It's a gray area.
Fuck 'em.
If no one's going to stand up for you, you got to stand up for yourself.
We don't have video that shows the moments before and after Shan's cell phone video.
Hey, the cops could release it if they wanted to. They have it. He said he got it on camera right there. Because he's too sexy.
City denied our request to see Hinkey's dash and body camera footage and his disciplinary report.
My biggest issue is that the officer wasn't acting professionally. A lot of people want to turn this into
He's a
black
dickhead.
and white thing, which I don't want that. But I would just like to sit down and talk with the guy.
City Manager Randy Eads writes to News 5 that based on a traffic stop Friday night, an officer was, quote,
I'm sure he's on paid leave. And just like Breed Creed said last night, paid leave will fix it.
administratively suspended the following day. Eads says it's a personnel matter and did not mention the suspended officer by name. An investigation is ongoing and could be finished within the next 2 weeks. In Bristol, Virginia,
Officer Hinkey. I'm going to see if I can get a hold of Alex and we'll get him on the Troll Patrol. That would be fucking cool.
Angelique Arentalk, News 5 WCYB.
The cell phone video sent to us shows the police supervisor eventually arriving at the traffic stop. Shan was issued a ticket for driving with no headlights.
Fucking stupid. What is that, like a $25 fine? Dude didn't even know why he was being pulled over. All right, one more, and then we're going to the debate. I don't even know. Call this a fun story or what? I don't even fuck. Parents turn in their own 13-year-old son for vandalizing 2 Trump flags. First of all, you should fucking reward that kid. Give him a pizza party and a sleepover with his friends. Buy him a PS5 or an Xbox. Is it Xbox One now? Snitch ass parents. Nobody likes a narc now, motherfuckers. Let's see where this happened. Pasco, Washington. Posted an image of a boy on October 5th. I guess he snuck out of the house in the middle of the night. pulled 2 flags away from the home and tore them up. Is stealing somebody's flags, is that illegal? Because I've done that before. The parents informed that their 13-year-old son using this as a teaching moment. Fuck, your son's part of the resistance, the actual resistance. Not the pussy asses that wish Trump well, the actual resistance. Be proud of your kid. There you go. Teach your son how not to get caught. I mean, okay, so they've got this picture. See his face, but he had his hood up. He needed to do a better job of reconnaissance. He should have looked all around the house to make sure that there were no surveillance devices. And once he identified them, he could go in with his face the other way. Let's pull up the C-SPAN. Get ready for the vice presidential debate. I have been looking forward to this for so long. They're doing introductions now. Let me... As always, I'm going to be putting it up on the big monitor. I'm going to be watching over there. In Utah, I'd assume they're in Salt Lake City then? 'Cause I don't think there's much else in Utah. Pence had to debate Tim Kaine in 2016. I don't even remember that debate. I'm not sure I even watched it. Two boring ass crusty old white men. Now this time there's a much different dynamic at play. The man who is 100% intimidated by women. Who more than likely, if he isn't overtly racist, is at least subconsciously racist. And involved with an administration that will unabashedly appeal to racists. So him going up against a strong black woman who was a prosecutor, who is fantastic at questions, at extemporaneous speaking. If you have ever watched her in the Senate during committee hearings, holy shit. I'm sure she was captain of the debate team in her high school, her college. That's how good the woman is. She eats people alive, questioning them in committee. I am so giddy to see this woman go to work on Mike Pence, who is a blithering fucking idiot. Mike Pence used to do a talk show. Huh. Well, maybe that's another network in the background doing their opening segment. C-SPAN is no frills. Ooh, after the stream, like we did last time, we'll try to get on the Washington Journal. That'll be fun. The anticipation, it's killing me. Yes, Trump is recovering from the virus, and we are currently on
Trump dies of COVID watch.
Now, I really wanted to get tickets to the debate that's going to be at Belmont. That's actually the final debate. But everything is up in the air. Will there even be 2 more debates? Last that I heard, Joe Biden was saying that he wouldn't agree to be in a room with Donald Trump, and I don't blame him. And honestly, Joe Biden doesn't really have anything more. He has nothing to gain from doing the debates. I personally hope the 2 debates happen because I'm a political junkie and I love this shit and I want content to be able to stream. Very much looking forward to this. But if I was Joe Biden's campaign manager, I would be telling him, you know, if you don't do the other 2, that's totally cool. It's not politically advantageous to do the other 2 debates, I don't think. The thing that I think will win out, though, is that there is a whole industry around the debates and the media covering the debates. There's a lot of money to be made on debate night. And I bet there's a lot of donors.
Good evening. From the University of Utah
Here we
in
go.
Salt Lake City, welcome to the first and only vice presidential debate of 2020, sponsored by the nonpartisan
it's going to be
Commission on
entertaining.
Presidential debates. I'm Susan Page of USA Today. It is my honor to moderate this debate, an important part of our democracy. In Kingsbury Hall tonight, we have a small and socially distant audience.
Don't go to sleep
and we've
on me,
taken
though.
Extra precautions during this pandemic.
Please stay with us.
Among other things, everyone in the audience is required to wear a face mask, and the candidates will be seated 12 feet apart. The audience is enthusiastic about their candidates, but they've agreed to express that enthusiasm only twice, at the end of the debate and now when I introduce the candidates. Please welcome California Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence.
I am wearing my Jesus bandana because I am praying for Mike Pence. He is a dead man.
Thank you.
Senator Harris and Vice President Pence, thank you for being here. We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19.
Meeting as we are on
Trump dies of COVID watch.
And for the recovery of everyone afflicted by the coronavirus. The 2 campaigns and the Commission on Presidential Debates have agreed to the ground rules for tonight. I'm here to enforce them on behalf of the millions of Americans who are watching. One note, no one in either campaign or at the Commission or anywhere else has been told in advance what topics I'll raise or what questions I'll ask. This 90-minute debate will be divided into 9 segments of about 10 minutes each.
I'm not high enough for this
I'll begin a
shit.
segment by posing a question to each of you, sometimes the same question, sometimes a different question on the same topic. You will then have 2 minutes to answer without interruption by me or the other candidate. Then we'll take 6 minutes or so to discuss the issue. At that point, although there will always be more to say, we'll move on to the next topic. We want a debate that is lively, but Americans also deserve a discussion that is civil. These are tumultuous times, but we can and will have a respectful exchange.
Got some
about the
passive
big
aggressiveness
issues
going
facing
on
our
there.
nation. Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic.
And she had a little stare too. That was
So
cool.
much. Senator Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond.
See, she's even got her pen. She's going to town.
Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And
It's a
here are
great
the facts.
opening statement.
210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan.
They're
Well, Joe
still
Biden
downplaying
does.
it.
And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has and that I have, knowing that we have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that, and frankly, this administration has forfeited their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since February.
She stumbled
the
a
U.S.
little
death
bit there,
toll
but
as a
she
percentage of our
stuck the landing.
population is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on earth. For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to
Incompetence.
respond without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you. Our nation's gone through a very challenging time.
I don't think he believes that.
But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States.
She stated
all
her
people
case
who
like a
had returned
prosecutor
from
would.
China. President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world.
They
Now,
always point to
Senator
that.
Joe Biden opposed that decision. He said it was xenophobic and hysterical. But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because with that time, we were able to reinvent testing. More than 115 million tests have been done today.
There are still so many faulty tests out there.
Billions of supplies, so our doctors and nurses had the resources support they needed. And we began, really, before the month of February was out, to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe, will have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about. And I think the American people know that this is a president who has put the health of America first, and the American people, I believe with my heart, can be proud of the sacrifices they have made.
That was a good line. Maybe I underestimated him.
American lives. Senator Harris, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives that have been lost, families that are grieving that loss. And you know, the vice president is the head of the task force and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
no, but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I like the markets.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh
speaking.
Yeah, you can have 15 more seconds, and then we'll give the vice president a chance to respond.
So I want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm were you when your children couldn't see
Well,
your
we've had a lot of reports of faulty
you were afraid
testing,
they could
too.
kill them?
Let's give Vice President Pence a chance to respond. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute to respond.
You know, there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts and in our prayers.
That is the first time the administration has ever expressed any sympathy
hasn't worked
towards the victims
That's
of
a great
the coronavirus.
The sacrifices the American people have made.
I'm referring
The
to
reality,
the
if I may finish, Senator, the reality is Dr. Fauci said everything that he told the president in the Oval Office, the president told the American people. Now, President Trump, I will tell you, has boundless confidence in the American people, and he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts
That seems
came
to be
us
their
in the second week
talking
of March,
point.
They said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans. Now, that's the reality.
Thank you.
They also
Thank you,
said
Vice
to us, if
President
we
Pence.
did everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice President
Now, one
Pence.
life lost is too many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their family and their neighbors first, our doctors, our nurses, our first
Thank you, Vice
responders.
President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice President Pence, you were in the front row in a Rose Garden event 11 days ago.
I mean,
what
that's
seems to have been a
contradictory to
super-spreader
what
event
Trump
for
said in the
senior
Rose Garden
administration
today.
Officials. No social distancing, few masks, and now a cluster of coronavirus cases among those who were there. How can you expect Americans to follow the
He didn't even want the
administration's
shields.
safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so?
Well, the American people have demonstrated over the last 8 months that when given the facts, they're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know first. And President Trump and I have great confidence in the American people and their ability to take that information and put it into practice. In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day, we surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans and Detroit. We told the American people what needed to be done, and the American people made the sacrifices. When the outbreak in the Sun Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward. But the reality is the work of the President of the United States goes on. A vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the President introduced Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice President.
At that, if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of
I'm always happy
speculation
about that topic.
My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is
it was a super
President
spreader.
Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care,
Thank you,
the Green New Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting
Exactly right.
You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader
done.
speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked about
It is asking too much of the people. That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves to protect
Susan,
their parents and their children.
Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
It's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me. For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it, absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Vice President Pence, there have been a
Fair
lot
enough.
of repercussions from this pandemic. In recent days, the president's diagnosis of COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job that you hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had. Donald Trump will be 74 years old on Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be 78 years old. That already has raised concerns among some voters, concerns that have been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days. Vice President Pence, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
Yes, this is a breath of
Susan,
fresh air.
thank you, although I would like to go back.
I think we need to move on to the issue of
but I would like to
vice
go back
presidency.
because the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you.
Honestly, I
stop
wish that
playing
Kamala
politics with
was the
The reality is that we
nominee.
will have a
If it
vaccine,
couldn't have
we
been
believe,
Bernie.
before the end of this year, and it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is it's just unacceptable. And let me also say, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration,
It's those baby boomers that don't want to let
what
go.
failure looks like in a pandemic. It was 2009. The swine flu arrived in the United States. Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu. 60 million Americans contracted the swine flu. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus, in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives.
We may
His own
very
chief of
well hit
staff,
70
Ron
million.
Klain, would say last year that it was pure luck that they did, quote, everything possible wrong. And we learned from that. They left the strategic national stockpile empty. They left an empty and hollow plan, but we still learned from it. And I think the American people, I'm going to say again, can be proud
Vice President Pence, I'm sorry,
of what we have done. And Senator, please stop undermining confidence in a vaccine.
Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked Vice President Pence, which is, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call, asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I
can imagine.
I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud, and she must be looking down on this. You know, Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work, about the value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And I think Joe asked me to serve with him because, you know, I have a career that included being elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, where I created models of innovation for law enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first
ACAB means Kamala too.
Woman of color and black woman to be elected Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice. And there I took on everything from transnational criminal organizations to the big banks that were taking advantage of homeowners, to for-profit colleges that were taking advantage of veterans.
She didn't
and
prosecute
then, of course,
Steve
now I
Mnuchin.
serve in the United States Senate as only the second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, where I've been in regular receipt of classified information about threats to our nation and hotspots around the world. I've traveled the world. I've met with our soldiers in war zones. And I think Joe has asked me to serve with him because he knows that we share a purpose which is about lifting up the American people. And after the 4 years that we have seen of Donald Trump unifying our country around our common values and principles.
Thank you, Senator Harris. You know, neither President Trump nor Vice President Biden has released a sort of detailed health information.
Seriously, I hope it's a Harris presidency.
The 2016 election. And in recent days, President Trump's doctors have given misleading answers.
She's the
or
one
refused
that's
to answer
actually in
basic
control.
questions about his health. And my question
Biden is just
to
some
each of you
figurehead.
in turn is this information voters deserve to know? Vice President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say, on behalf of the President and the First Lady, how moved we've all been by the outpouring of prayers and concern for the President. And I do believe it's emblematic of the prayers and the concern that have ushered forth for every American impacted by the coronavirus. But the care the President received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their President, and will continue to do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern. And I also want to congratulate you, as I did on that phone call, on the historic nature of your nomination.
Thank you.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year. And the stakes have never been higher, but I think the choice has never been clearer.
I want to give Senator Harris a chance to respond to the same question I asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed health information about presidential candidates and especially about presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge?
Absolutely, and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000?" And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes
broke
and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know who the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know what is influencing the President's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest? So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency, because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent over many, many years. The one thing we all know about Joe,
he's been in the public eye over 40 years.
He puts it all out there. He is honest, he is forthright, but Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond, Vice President.
Well, look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service as well.
Thank you.
The American people have a president who's a
Well, let's not
businessman,
start sucking each other's dicks.
who's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes. He's created tens of thousands of American jobs. And the president said those public reports are not accurate.
Uh-oh, we got a Smokey
coming. The president's
coming.
also released literally stacks of financial disclosures the American people can review just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service, compared to President Donald Trump, who brought all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you, Vice
and
President.
turned this economy around by cutting taxes, rolling back regulation, unleashing American energy, fighting for free and fair trade, and all of that's on the line if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You know, that's a good segue into our third topic, which is about the economy. This has been another aspect of life for Americans. It's been so
Smokey Bong 2020
by this coronavirus. We have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the unemployment rate had declined to 7.9% in September, but the job growth had stalled, and that was before the latest round of layoffs and furloughs in the airline industry at Disney and elsewhere. Hundreds of thousands of discouraged workers have stopped looking for work. Nearly 11 million jobs that existed at the beginning of the year haven't been replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, blacks, and women. Senator Harris, the Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
No.
On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health.
You say that, but
of
Smokey is not
economy
the smartest
based on
cat.
the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American people. And through a plan that is about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure.
It was always
about
infrastructure
upgrading our
week.
roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development so that we were an innovation leader on the globe. Joe Biden will use that money to invest in education. So for example, for folks who want to go to a 2-year community college, it will be free. If you come from a family that makes less than $125,000, you'll go to a public university for free. And across the board, we'll make sure that if you have student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000. That's how Joe Biden thinks about the economy, which is it's about investing in the people of our country as opposed to passing a tax bill, which had the benefit of letting American corporations go offshore to do their business.
Thank you,
You're
Senator
welcome.
Harris. Vice President Pence, your administration has been predicting a rapid and robust recovery, but the latest
It's
economic
science,
report
not
suggests
Santa.
that's
I like
not
that.
happening. Should Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year or more? You have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
When President Trump and I took office,
I think
America
we're a
had gone through
long
the
way away
slowest
from talking about a
economic recovery since
comeback.
the Great Depression. It's when Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy. President Trump cut
They
taxes
did.
across the board. Despite what Senator Harris says, the average American family of 4 had $2,000 in savings in taxes. And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans, the average household income for a family of 4 increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean, right after a time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height, we've already added back 11.6 million jobs because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this. Joe Biden and Kamala
I don't think
Harris want
that's
to
true
raise
at all.
taxes. They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland. And Joe Biden wants to go back to the economic surrender to China, that when we took office, half of our international trade deficit was with China alone. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers. Joe Biden says democracy's on the ballot. Make no mistake about it, Susan. The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth and opportunity, 4 more years of President Donald Trump. 2021 is going to be the biggest economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I think that we saw enough of it in
That's a
last
bold
week's debate,
statement.
But I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is, Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise
a good
taxes
line.
on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait,
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if he said the truth. Joe Biden has said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000
fucking pennies
in a tax break every single year.
That is-
Senator,
that is
I didn't see no fucking
absolutely
tax
not
break.
true. That
is he
tax
only
bill-
cutting? Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation. Okay?
Repeal it all.
Okay. Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that.
Goddamn.
Joe Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession, was responsible for the Recovery Act that brought America back. And now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit
He did have a big hand in the Recovery
when they rode
Act.
the coattails of Joe Biden's success for the economy that they had at the beginning of their term. Of course, now the economy is a
Using
complete
his
disaster.
sway in the Senate.
But Joe Biden, on the one hand, did that. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who has reigned over a recession that is being compared to the Great Depression.
Reigned
On the one
over.
hand, you have Joe Biden, who was responsible with President Barack Obama for the Affordable Care Act. which brought health care to over 20 million Americans and protected people with pre-existing conditions. And what it also did is it saved those families who otherwise were going bankrupt because of hospital bills they could not afford. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who's in court right now, trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which means that you will lose protections if you have pre-existing conditions. And this is very important, Susan.
Yes,
and it's
but
important
we need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish, please. If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer,
not pre-existing
they're coming
condition.
for you. If you love someone who has a pre-existing condition,
Thank you,
they're coming for you. If you are under the age of 26,
they are. They are in the courts right now.
They're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster. The American people remember it well.
Private health care is a disaster, and temporary Band-Aids trying to fix it are all going to be a disaster too.
But look, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were running for president that you would ban fracking. Joe Biden looked at a supporter in the eye and pointed and said, I guarantee
I wish they would ban fracking.
That we will abolish fossil fuels. They have a $2 trillion version of the Green New Deal.
We
Susan,
should.
Your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal. More taxes, more regulation, banning fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy, and economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline. President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now will continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President Pence. Once again, you've provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate change. And Vice President Pence, I'd like to pose the first question to you. This year, we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the South. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf. And we have seen record-setting wildfires in the West. Do you
I'm
believe,
getting ready to feel the
as
Delta.
The scientific community has concluded that man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, and more deadly, and have made hurricanes wetter, slower, and more damaging? You have
Trump doesn't trust the science.
Thank you, Susan.
Science could be wrong.
First, I'm very proud of our record on the environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates, our air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded. Our water is among the cleanest.
Don't get me started about the coal industry.
And just a little while ago, the President signed the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years. So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing. But the issue is, what's the cause and what do we do about it? President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science.
Carbon emissions.
Now, Joe Biden
cut them.
And Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose the Green New Deal, which would crush American energy, would increase the energy costs of American families in their homes, and literally would
He's acting like so many people work in those industries. They've all been automated. There's very few jobs.
In a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy. You know, what's remarkable is the United States
multiple
has reduced
coal companies have
CO2
shut down under the Trump
more
administration
than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done it through innovation. And we've done it through natural gas and fracking, which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation,
I really wish I could vote for the candidates that are running in his head.
President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center, and even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually as difficult as they are,
Thank you, Vice President.
there are no more hurricanes today than there were 100 years ago.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists use hurricanes
but they've
and
intensified
wildfires to try and sell their bill of goods of a Green New Deal And President Trump and I are going to always put
Thank you,
American
Vice
jobs and
President
American
Pence.
workers first.
How many
Senator
once-in-a-century
Harris, as
hurricanes
the
have we
Vice President
had in the
mentioned, you
last 10
co-sponsored the Green New
years?
Deal in Congress. But Vice President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
You are correct.
Sure. So first of all,
Those
I
imaginary
will repeat,
candidates would
and
be
the
much
American
better than
people
Trump.
know that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact. I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks
thought you
about
wanted me to
growing
vote
jobs,
for
which is why
you.
He will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year.
This is one
Joe
of the
Biden's
reasons why
economic
it's been a
plan,
smart strategy for Joe
Moody's,
Biden to shut
which is
up.
a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those
He
jobs
has
that
not
will be
been out
created
here
by Joe
reminding
Biden
me why
are gonna
I don't
be
want to vote
about
for him.
clean energy and renewable energy. Because you see, Joe understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms. Joe has seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa, whose entire crops have been destroyed
He
because
has
of
seen
floods.
and talked to Corn
And so
Pop.
Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website and then took the phrase climate change off the website? We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe
They
in
did.
science.
What's he shaking his head
And Joe's
about?
plan is about saying we're going to deal with it, but we're also going to create jobs. Donald Trump, when asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, the science is telling us this, you know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know. So let's talk about who is prepared to lead our country over the course of the next 4 years on what is an existential threat to us as human beings. Joe is about saying we're going to invest that in renewable energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs. We will achieve net zero emissions by 2050, carbon neutral by 2035. Joe has a plan. This has been a lot of talk from the Trump administration, and really it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that on day one,
We've got a Maynard.
He was going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. Those tax cuts
Say, hey,
delivered
buddy.
$2,000 in tax relief to the average family of 4 across America. And with regard to banning fracking, I just recommend that people look at the record. You yourself said repeatedly that you would ban fracking. You were the first Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. And while Joe Biden
That's
denied
all
the
he's
Green New
got.
Deal, Susan, thank you for pointing
Like, he
out
has gone back to
the Green
that
New
so
Deal is
many
on their campaign
times.
website, and as USA Today said, it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate. And you just heard the senator say that she's
And that's
going
a play for the
resubmit America
Midwest.
to the Paris Climate Accord. Look, the American people have always cherished our environment. We'll continue to cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a massive $2 trillion Green New Deal that would impose all new mandates on American businesses and American families.
Thank you.
Joe Biden wants us
Thank
to
you, Vice
retrofit
President.
4 million
Thank you, Vice
American
President.
business buildings. It makes no sense. It will cost jobs.
And we should switch
President
to metric
Trump
while we're,
Thank you, Vice
put
President.
we're
America
doing
first.
it.
He's going to put jobs first, and we're going to take care of our environment and follow the science.
Thank
But
you, Vice President.
on the issue of jobs,
Senator Harris.
let's talk about that.
This is an
the
O.
Vice
Hold on.
President earlier referred to it as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment.
Got a Mike Pence ad right
the-
now
the
on
president's
Facebook.
Trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You lost it. What ended up happening
He sure as fuck
is
did.
because of a so-called trade war with China, America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs. Farmers have experienced bankruptcy because of it. We are in a manufacturing recession because of it. And when we look at where this administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration, they will have
already putting out
lost
propaganda.
more jobs than almost any other
Says Pence
presidential
tortures her
administration.
during opening
And
statement.
the American people know what I'm talking about. You know.
It was a
I
good
think about
line, but it's a
20-year-olds.
lie.
You know, we have a 20-year-old, a 20-something-year-old, who are coming out of high school and college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me? We're looking at people who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American renters are worried about whether they're going to be able to pay rent by the end of the month. This is where the economy is in America right now, and it is because of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you just 15 seconds to respond, because then I want to move on to
Well, I'd love to respond. Look, lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China through over the last several decades. And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts.
You can call Joe Biden a lot of things, but I don't know about that.
Manufacturing jobs, and President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, this administration saw 500,000 manufacturing jobs created. And that's exactly the kind of growth we're going to continue to see as we bring our nation through this pandemic. The Green New Deal, your massive new mandates, your Paris Climate Accord, it's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
I just need to respond very briefly.
15 seconds, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about China.
Just in case anyone's ever wondering, like, Facebook totally thinks I'm a Republican. People say I live in a bubble, but I'm like, I follow Republican shit.
It is a huge market for American agricultural goods. It's a potential partner in dealing with climate change in North Korea. And in a video tonight, President Trump again blamed it for the coronavirus, saying China will pay.
Ivanka has a trade deal with China.
How would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Competitors, adversaries, enemies? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Susan. Well, before I leave that, let me speak to voting records if I can. You know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally thousands of American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border. President Trump fought to renegotiate NAFTA. And the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement is now the law of the land. American people deserve to know Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the
Ivanka's
USMCA.
brand's been doing all kinds of fucking deals with China.
Workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you said it didn't go far enough on climate
See, they're
change.
focusing on the Midwest.
That you put your
crucial in the
radical
election
environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. The American people deserve to know that. Is probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate in 2019. More liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than any of the others in the United States Senate. So
what? Who said that? They're stupid.
Look, Susan, first and foremost, China is to blame for the coronavirus. And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear again today. China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February. Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration, standing up to China that had been taking advantage of America for decades in the wake of Joe Biden's cheerleading for China, President Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend all travel from China. And again, the American people deserve to know Joe Biden opposed
He's only got
decision to
5-6 different lines.
China. He said it was hysterical. He said it was xenophobic.
He's like a little
President Trump has
toy.
stood up to China. We're going to continue to stand strong.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field, and we're going to hold China accountable for what they did to America with the coronavirus.
Thank you. Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked the Vice President. How would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Are we competitors, adversaries, enemies? You'll have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Susan, the Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs, and America's standing. There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example,
well, that is true.
They created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got away, they got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives. Let's look at the job situation. We mentioned before the trade deal, the trade war, they wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession, and the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed war that they called it. Then let's talk about standing. Pew, a reputable research firm, has done an analysis that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, than they do Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. This
Xi
is where we
Jinping is
are
a smart
today
man.
because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Senator Harris, we've seen changes in the role of the United States in terms of global leadership over the past 4 years. And of course, times do change. What's your definition? We've seen strains with China, of course, as the Vice President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership in 2020?
So, you know, Joe is, I love talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, you know, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, you know,
I bet Joe
foreign
is really
policy
fun to
might
talk
sound
to.
complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as relationships. And so we know this in our personal and professional relationships. You got to keep your word to your friends. You got to be loyal to your friends. People who've stood with you, got to stand with them. You got to know who your adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends and embraced dictators around the world. Let's take, for example, Russia. So, I serve on the Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us Russia interfered in the election of the President of the United States in 2016 and is playing in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said the same. But Donald Trump, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of the American intelligence community. You look at our friends at NATO. He has walked away from agreements. You can look at the Iran nuclear deal, which now has put us in a position where we are less safe because they are building up what might end up being a significant nuclear arsenal. We were in that deal, guys. We were in the Iran nuclear deal with friends, with allies around the country. And because of Donald Trump's unilateral approach to foreign policy, coupled with his isolationism, he pulled us out and has made America less safe. So, Susan, it's about relationships.
And because he wanted
And
to
the thing
undo
that has
what
always been
Obama
part of the
did.
strength of our nation, in addition to our great military, has been that we keep our word. But Donald Trump doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, thank you. Well, President Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. When Joe Biden was vice president.
Oh, yeah, that one's the one he kept his word about.
We stood strong with our allies, but we've been demanding. NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to President Trump's leadership. We've strengthened our alliances across the Asia-Pacific, and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. You know, when President Trump came into office, ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size of Pennsylvania. But President Trump unleashed the American military.
Well, this is a new one.
And our armed
that
forces
one in his back
destroyed the
pocket.
ISIS caliphate and took down their leader, al-Baghdadi, without one American casualty. Al-Baghdadi was responsible for the death of thousands.
Obama killed bin
Notably,
Laden.
America's hearts today are with the family of Kayla Mueller, her parents of which are here with us tonight in Salt Lake City. Today, 2 of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United States. Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with the other Beetle. The reality is that when Joe Biden was vice president, we had an opportunity to save Kayla Mueller. It breaks my heart to
Jihadi
reflect on
John?
the military came
What kind of
into the
jingoistic motherfucking
presented
shit
a
is
plan
that?
Said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi had held her for 18 months, abused her mercilessly before they killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla
You don't
would be alive
think?
today.
Thank you, Vice
Look, we
President.
destroyed the ISIS caliphate. And you talk about re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the last administration transferred $1.8 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President
terrorism. President Donald Trump got us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
And when Qasem Soleimani
Oh, did you not know that he was buried
to
at sea?
Baghdad
Thank you,
to do
Vice President
harm
Pence.
to Americans, President Donald
I mean,
Trump
he
took
was a
Thank you, Vice
CIA
President.
asset.
America
I will
is
entertain the
safer,
notion that he's still
our allies
alive.
are safer, and the American people know President Donald Trump will never
Thank you,
hesitate
Vice President
to take
Pence.
action.
I would like to give Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of course, there are other topics we want to talk about.
But I would like equal time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your daughter's case, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What happened to her is awful, and it should have never happened. And I know Joe feels the same way. And I know that President Obama feels the same way. But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there. So after the strike on Soleimani, there was a counter strike on our troops in Iraq. And they suffered serious brain injuries. And do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as? Headaches. And this is about a pattern of Donald
Oh, yeah, I forgot about
where
that.
He has referred to our men who are serving in our military as suckers and losers. Donald
That would have
Trump,
been
who went to
that would have been more
Arlington
fun.
Cemetery
I agree.
and stood above the graves of our fallen heroes and said, What's
He
in
was
it
a
for them?
CIA asset.
because
so
of course, you know, he only thinks about what's in it for him.
Never know.
Let's take what he said about John McCain.
Is bin Laden really the
great
bad guy
American
in the
hero.
story of bin Laden?
And
We trained the
Donald Trump
motherfucker.
says he doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war. And this is very important when you want to talk about who is the current commander-in-chief and what they care about and what they don't care about. Public reporting that Russia had bounties on the heads of American soldiers. And you know what a bounty is? It's somebody puts a price on your head and they will pay it if you are killed. And Donald Trump had talked at least 6 times to Vladimir Putin and never brought up the subject. Joe Biden would never do that.
Thank
Joe
you.
Biden would, but Joe Biden would hold Russia to account for any threat to our nation's security or to our troops who are sacrificing their lives for the sake of our democracy and our safety.
Thank you, Senator Harris. This is such an important issue, but we have other important issues as well. And
Susan,
I want to make sure we have a chance
I really have to
talk
respond
about
to that. Look, she has
15 seconds because
well, I got to have
trying
more
to
than
keep,
that. Look,
well, I'm sorry, but Vice President,
Wow.
but you've had more time than she's had so far.
Slanders against President Donald Trump regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry,
not
Vice President.
slander.
Captain
It's
in
true.
the United States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve
What
in
a
our
bitch.
armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous.
But
Let
thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say
President Pence.
the
Vice
American
President Pence,
people deserve, Susan,
Vice
the
President
American
Gaddafi.
I
people
didn't,
to know.
Vice President Pence, I did not, excuse me,
Susan, the
I did
American
not
people
create
deserve
the
to know
rules for tonight.
Joe Biden
Your
and
campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's debate with the Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm here to enforce them, which involves
Of course
moving from
Pence
one
doesn't think
topic
the
to
rules
another,
apply to
giving
him.
roughly equal time to both of you,
Go right
which
ahead.
is what I'm trying very hard to do.
Go right ahead.
So I want to go
There are
ahead
two different
and move
spellings,
to the
one with a
next
K
topic,
and one
which
with a
is
G.
An important one, as the last topic was.
I don't
and
think
that
like
is
the
Supreme Court.
Lebanese language translates
On Monday, the
exactly or
Senate
whatever.
Judiciary Committee is scheduled to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee. Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Access to abortion
I would
then be
highly recommend the
Vice
Behind the
President Pence,
Bastards
you're the former
about
governor of Indiana. If
Muammar
Roe v.
Gaddafi.
Wade is overturned,
That's a fucking
what would
crazy
you
ass
want
story.
Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue before. The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem Soleimani. It's really inexplicable, but with regard to Joe Biden, it's explainable.
She
History
asserted
records that
herself.
Joe Biden
Well,
actually
Pence was being a
opposed the war
bitch.
against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential that we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members, and that's what you have in President Donald Trump. Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. She's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court of the United States. And our hope is, in the hearing next week, unlike Justice Kavanaugh received with treatment from you and others, we hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before. I mean, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before,
Q-tip ahead.
when Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern. Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and
Thank you.
pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
So
Your
my
time
hope
is
is
up.
that when the hearing takes place,
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
that Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected,
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
voted and confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact
Exactly.
no
Fuck her
restrictions
faith.
on access to abortion? And you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. First of all, Joe Biden and I are both people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for
fuck
their
your faith.
And in fact, Joe, if elected, will be
Exactly.
only the second, practicing Catholic.
And that's the reason
as
why the
President
issue
of
is
the
brought
United
up.
States.
We're not attacking her for
on
her
the issue
faith.
of this nomination.
It's worrying
Joe and I
if she
are very clear,
has
as are the majority of the American
extremist
people.
views.
We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before, when this conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted. People are in the process of voting right now. And so Joe has been very clear, as the American people are. Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And
that's what they said in 2016.
Before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like, literally in the midst of a public health pandemic, when over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the virus. Donald Trump is in court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I said it before, and it bears repeating. This means that there will be no more protections, if they win, for people with pre-existing conditions. This means that over 20 million people will lose your coverage. It means that if you're under the age of 26, you can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore. And here's the thing. The contrast couldn't be more clear. They're trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Joe Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public option or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
Thank you, Senator
Let's
Harris.
lower Medicare eligibility to 60.
Thank you, Senator.
That's true
Harris.
leadership.
You know, you mentioned earlier, Vice President Pence, that the president was committed to maintaining protections for people with pre-existing conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act. The president says, President Trump says that he's going to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that. And that was one of the toughest nuts to crack when they were passing the Affordable Care Act. So tell us specifically, how would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing conditions to have access to affordable insurance if the Affordable Care Act is struck down?
Well, thank you, Susan. But let me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast.
You're exactly right. Constitutionally,
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up.
But that's no reason to not make it a political issue because they went back on what they said in 2016.
Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules.
I'm
now,
for it.
You refuse to answer the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would really like to know, if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed at the Supreme Court of the United States, are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to
that critique doesn't work on people that have no shame.
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1864...
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
No, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. In 1864, one of the, I think, political heroes, certainly of the president, I assume of you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election. And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States, and then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear.
That's
The
what they
American
said in
people are
2016.
voting right now, and it should be their
They don't have
decision
time to get her
about
confirmed,
who
though.
will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
Thank you,
And the
Senator
American
Harris.
people, Susan, are voting right now. They'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are
Yes.
gonna pack the
Every
Supreme
right.
Court
The Constitution
if you don't get your way in
does
this
not
nomination.
specify
Let's talk about packing.
how many
Once again,
justices
gave a
there have to be.
non-answer. Joe Biden gave a non-answer.
Trying to answer you
the
now.
American people deserve a straight answer, and if you haven't figured it out yet, the straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this
I don't
election.
think they will. I don't think they have the
I got to
balls.
tell you, people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation of powers, you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of powers in a 9-seat.
Yeah, let's talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about the
Please.
fact. Yeah, I'm about to.
Ooh.
So the Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are
Good
purely
answer.
ideological, people who have been reviewed by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50
I'm coming around to that.
who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
All right, thank you, Senator. Let's go on and talk about the issue of racial
Great response.
justice.
I just want the record to reflect she never answered the question. So I think the American people,
Thank
maybe
you.
the next debate, Joe
She
Biden
had a
will
better
answer.
response.
I think
You
the
haven't
American
answered
people
any
know
other
that.
questions,
Vice
motherfucker.
In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician in Louisville, was shot and
Say
killed
her name.
after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation broke into her apartment. The police said they identified themselves. Taylor's boyfriend said he didn't hear them do that. He used a gun registered to him to fire a shot, which wounded an officer. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds into the apartment. They say they were acting in self-defense. None of them have been indicted in connection with her death. Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe
Absolutely
so.
not.
I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn what's going on out on the street so she could then become a nurse and save lives. And her life was taken unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And it brings me to, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed, during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee of an armed, uniformed police officer. And people around our
Thug
country,
Nazi motherfucker.
of every race, of every age, of every gender, perfect strangers to each other, marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law. And I was a part of those peaceful protests. And I believe strongly that, first of all, we are never going to condone violence, but we always must fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform,
That's a good idea.
private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana And we will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana. This is a time for leadership on a tragic, tragic issue of unarmed black people in America who have been killed.
Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me pose the same question to you. In the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence.
I don't.
And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor,
well, the grand jury wants to
you
speak
would assume
out.
that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion, Senator.
No. They've said there was some fuckery going on. The grand jury has said it.
There's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. And justice will be served.
So watch him make
excuses. There's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed. I mean,
yeah, there
really
is. Justice hasn't been served.
Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon.
It's a stupid fucking face.
By rioters and looters.
Welcome, Breed Creed.
Still trying to put her
been wondering where you've been in.
And I must tell you, this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that America is systemically racist, and that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an
Have you read a history
bias
book
against minorities, is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone
is there fly in his
who puts
hair?
on the uniform of law enforcement every day. And President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable
what the fuck indeed
that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris, you got up and walked out of the room. And then you filibustered Senator
I got my Jesus
Tim
bandana
Scott's
on.
bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. Look, we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety.
He's got some kind of bug in his hair.
American neighbors and all of our minorities.
It's fucking
Under
with
President
me.
Trump's leadership, we'll always stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done from day one, and that is improve the lives of African Americans.
That look, I wouldn't want that look.
Record investments in education, and we'll fight for school
Ooh,
choice
and then that
for all of
smirk.
Thank you, Vice
I'd like to respond.
Lord of the Flies.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the Vice President on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this
Flies
stage
do love shit.
who was personally
Good
prosecuted. Everything from child sexual assault to homicide. I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans. And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists.
Looked like a buffoon.
It wasn't like he didn't have a chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back, stand by. And this is a part of a
He does look like a corpse.
Of Donald Trump's. He
His
called
eyes are all
Mexicans
sunk in.
rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. He, on the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully protesting the need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets, anti-Semitic
That was a
slurs.
neo-Nazi rally.
And Donald Trump, when asked about it, said there were fine people on both sides. This is who we have as the President of the United States. And America, you deserve better. Joe Biden will be a president.
The rally
who brings
was
our country
organized
together
by
and
about
recognizes the beauty in our
neo-Nazis.
diversity and the fact that we
Senator
all
Harris,
have so much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan. is that
Oh, really?
you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris
what he
conveniently
said.
admitted after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes
Has
all
no
of the
principles.
American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record, Senator.
Thank you.
But I really need to make this point. When you were DA in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General of California, you increased
I believe that.
the disproportionate incarceration of
Thank
blacks
you.
in California. You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger to pass the First Step Act on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record
Thank
speaks
you,
for
Vice
itself.
President
President Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President
We've fought for
Pence.
educational choice and opportunities for African Americans, all of our
Thank you,
minorities.
sir.
And we'll do it for 4 more
Thank
years.
you. You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election itself.
Paula really wants to
I would like an
respond.
opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds because we're running out of time.
I appreciate that. First of all,
Yeah, we are coming
having
down to the
served
end.
as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda includes what this administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only.
Thank you, Senator
I
Harris.
would like to go through.
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk about the election itself before we have to.
But I want to talk about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training
Really,
for law
she
enforcement
should,
on
like,
implicit
that's
bias.
good of
because,
her to
yes,
assert
Joe Biden
herself
and I
there.
recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe. We did the work of instituting reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done and the work we will do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President on our record of what
She really
we have
wants
done
that
in
to be a
terms of law
soundbite.
enforcement and keeping our communities safe and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. And I'd like to pose I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what steps would you and Vice President Biden then take? What would
That was
happen
wild.
next? You have 2 minutes.
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud of the
Well, maybe it was just
coalition that
somebody
we've built
sneezing or
around our
something.
campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential race.
There
Of
was
course, we have
again.
the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of
Have a
President
shit ton of
George W. Bush's
Republicans.
cabinet are supporting our ticket. We have the support of,
They want jobs.
of Colin Powell, Cindy McCain, John Kasich, over 500 generals, retired generals, and former national security experts and advisors are supporting our campaign. And I believe they are doing that because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight for the integrity of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to joebiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote. Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote. So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election. Because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years, President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military, we revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women.
He just looks like a fucking...
I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. When you talk about accepting the outcome of the election,
with translucent...
I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election.
Material stretched over it.
It's amazing. When Joe Biden was Vice President of the United States, the FBI actually
spied
on
though.
President Trump and my campaign.
It looks
there were documents released this week that the CIA
did not
actually
spy.
made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in
It wasn't over a phone call.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules.
The crime occurred on the phone call.
Create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election.
It's a different scenario.
We have confidence in it. And I believe in all my heart that President Donald Trump's going to be reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight.
That look on her
the final
face.
Question of the debate. I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote. Quote, when I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is
I don't like you
citizen
anymore.
fighting
This
against citizen.
false
When I
false
watch the news, all I
equivalencies.
see are 2 candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along? And then she added, your examples could make all the difference to bring us together, end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question. And let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I started following
God,
news
he's a
when I was
slimy
very young.
bastard.
And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. And it's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world.
I don't think either of those things are true.
Don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States. One very liberal, one very conservative.
They shared
but
class interest.
Was the two of them and their families were the very closest.
They were two
friends.
rich lawyers.
I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument. But we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you,
in
Vice
times of
President.
need. And we've especially learned that.
Thank you,
through
Mr.
the
Vice President.
Unless you need to wear a mask
Senator
to stop
Harris,
the
what
spread
would
of
you
a
say
deadly
to-
virus.
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be that is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, that brings me to Joe. Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier.
To fuck Bernie over.
It so troubled him and upset him like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle and working in a bipartisan way.
Now that's true.
And that's what he's going to do as president. Joe Biden has a history
Capitulate to Republicans.
of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality, and most of all, our thanks to all the Americans who watched this debate tonight. Again, our best wishes for a quick recovery to President Trump, the First Lady, and everyone.
Hey. Speak for yourself, Susan. Sure, everyone else that's battling COVID-19. I don't know about the president now. I didn't actually say that. So, as I did last debate, I'm going to try to call into the Washington Journal. We'll have a little discussion with them, if we can. Let me get us some music back up here. Yeah. Get the show going again. So this is breaking. Trump's intelligence chief releases more than 1,000 pages of documents that support the Justice Department's probe of the origins of the Trump-Russia investigation. We want to get in on the C-SPAN here. Hold on, can I find the number for it real fast? I don't know if the number changes or if I can just call the number they usually use. Like you can call my number, 917-830-4359. Though it might be busy because I'm going to try to call C-SPAN. I wonder if it's on a different channel. That's the one that's live.
A strong economy, a can-do entrepreneurial ethos.
Oh, this is the beginning.
And is known for collegiate.
Maybe it did it.
Spectacular outdoor vistas and recreation, a strong economy, a can-do. Spectacular outdoor vistas and recreation, a strong economy, a can-do entrepreneurial ethos, and is known for collegiate.
Are they not even doing a show tonight? Or was I on the C-SPAN website?
All great garages start from the ground up.
Oh, fuck.
And that begins.
Ho. That killed me.
Safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so. The first question to the vice president. And Kenneth Vogel with the Washington Post. Susan Page's questions so far are incredibly incisive, cutting but fair. And she was doing a great job controlling the debate, though, of course, it's a lot easier to control Pence and Harris than to control the president. And Ashley Parker with the Washington Post. And now again, Pence is literally ignoring the question he was asked. A discussion with Trump about having to take over the presidency to answer a question of his choice. Unclear if this will irk voters or if it's savvy debate strategy. We'll note that Senator Harris was asked a similar question and she also did not answer it. And then Ed O'Keefe with CBS News says notable that Susan Page asks Kamala Harris to explain what's up with the Green New Deal. The senator never mutters those three words and never explicitly says that the Biden plan is or isn't the Green New Deal. And John Brennan, Pence gets asked a climate change question. Talks
That's
about
a good one,
taxes
Creed.
and fracking. Asked about health care. Pence talks about fracking. And
He's in self-isolation
says almost every answer
after coming in
this
contact
is about Pennsylvania
with Mike
referring
Pence
to the fracking question. And finally, Emily Holden writes for The Guardian in the United States. She says, for what it's worth, the president, any president, couldn't really ban fracking even if they wanted to. Turns out Congress is in charge, is still
That
in
is
charge
true.
of some stuff.
Well, let's hear from you now. We'll begin with Griffin in McDonough, Georgia, on our support President Trump Pence line. Griffin, what are your thoughts about tonight's vice presidential debate?
Yeah, so I'm Griffin from McDonough, Georgia, and I
want to give
thought
my
Mike
thoughts.
Pence was
Where's
really
the phone
presidential in
number?
that. I think he handled himself well. I think Harris made a few comments and a few jabs that were kind of inappropriate for the setting. I definitely think that showed well for the Trump campaign, and I think they worked on that after the previous debate and looking at that going forward. I think the polls will reflect that after this, and I'm very hopeful for the campaign in the future and for our country.
Griffin,
this really highlights respectful debate.
Griffin, what's an issue of concern to you?
748.
An issue of concern would just be the growing lack of respect each American has for each other. I think healthy debate is very important,
And he's a Trump supporter.
We're going to lose as a country.
Let's hear from Leo in Irvine, California, on our undecided line. Leo, what do you think about tonight's debate? Did it sway you in any way?
No, it didn't. I'm still quite undecided. Although it was much better than the first debate that I saw, which was basically both sides attacking each other. What I really wanted to see was a more policy debate. And I didn't really see that. It was basically politicians, dodging questions. More specifically, I would have wanted Kamala Harris to answer the court packing question. I'm a Republican, right? So to me,
They are.
judgeships is really.
There is no way that they are
judges is
going
really
to pack the court.
important, and it was, in fact, the only reason I would vote for Donald Trump. But since now that Trump is getting another nominee,
They do not have the balls to pack the court. She did not answer the question because she does not want people like me to get turned off this close to the
Ann
election.
is up next in Huntington Beach, California, very close to Irvine. Hi, Ann. This is on the Biden-Harris line.
Hi, my name is Ann, and I'm calling from Huntington Beach, California. And I have been supporting Biden and Harris up until this point, and I was quite honestly rather disappointed with her performance tonight because I have seen her state things.
She wasn't as
that
good
supported
as I
the
thought she
Green
would
New
be.
Deal, and that she has stated that she would ban fracking. And I was disappointed that she didn't stand up for those issues.
This is
tonight.
so
And
loud.
she was
I can't make it less
with
loud.
Those issues that were questioned of her. Secondly, when she could not answer and she refused to answer the question about packing the court, I was really disappointed with that. And she also came across sounding rather very arrogant and made some pretty harsh jabs at the vice president tonight, which seemed rather.
She came off sounding
So are you a
arrogant.
supporter of the Green New Deal?
Well, I've been undecided. I have contemplated it at some point, but I have been undecided on some of the issues. And so, given the fact of, her performance tonight, it has kind of been dissuading me away from wanting to vote from them.
And do you think that women politicians and men politicians are judged differently?
Honestly, in some instances, yes, but I don't think that it should be that way.
Thank you for calling in. Samantha in Center City, Minnesota, on our Trump-Pence line. Good evening. Whoop, that caller is gone. Let's hear from Renee in Wentzville, Missouri, on our Support Biden-Harris line. Hi, Renee.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the call. I feel this
God, it's so loud.
better handled by the
I want to call in, but I can't fix the loudness.
One of the issues we have with the Electoral College.
Ow. It's like hurting my
Being
ears.
addressed tonight were really specific to swing states like Pennsylvania and the issue of fracking. I seriously doubt that Pence was correct when he said over 200,000 jobs would be lost if we were to ban fracking.
I'm going to have to route it some other way, and I can't do that while we're streaming.
Outright lie. And I feel like his disrespect
Oof.
towards Senator Harris was apparent time and time again throughout the debate.
Tell us about Wentzville, Missouri. What's the economy like?
The economy is doing well here. We're about 25, 35 miles west of St. Louis. It's a very conservative county, St. Charles County, on the other side of the river. And I'm a minority in this area for lots of reasons, not just for being Hispanic, but also for being a Democrat.
That's Renee in Wentzville, and Pete is up next in Columbus, Ohio, on our Trump-Pence line. Hi, Pete.
Hi. I am so sick of the Democratic Party and their lies. It seems like it's the only thing they know how to do is lie. I don't know how many times Trump has been asked the question if he was a racist or not, and I don't know how many times.
Well, he is a racist.
respond telling these people that he is not and has never supported anything that was racist. How many times did he have to do that?
What?
That's ridiculous. And I'm sick of the media and the Democratic Party keep bringing that up because he's.
Well, how do you think your candidate Mike Pence did tonight?
He performs with class and dignity, and something that Harris
Did
does
he?
not have. She has no respect for the vice president, and she comes off brash and arrogant and just plain nasty.
That's Pete in Columbus, Ohio.
I think you don't like
Check
black
back
people.
in with Greta Brawner.
Jennifer Epstein, who reports for Bloomberg, notes this, that after the debate, Douglas Emhoff, the husband of Senator Harris, walked onto the stage with a mask while Karen Pence, the second lady, did not. And on the ticket that those
Of course they're not wearing masks.
in the audience, Matt Visor from the Washington Post notes that the ticket holder, on their ticket, it says this, that the ticket holder relieves the commission on presidential debates and the event site host of any and all liability of any kind or character, including in the event of injury or sickness, including COVID-19. And masks were mandatory at tonight's vice presidential debate. The president tweeted
They don't give a shit.
to the debate. Mike Pence is doing great. He said at 9:55 p.m., she is a gaffe machine. And right as the debate started, Joe Biden tweeted out, Kamala Harris.
She didn't perform very well early on.
Why I chose her as my running mate. She's smart, she's experienced, she's a proven fighter for the middle class. She'll be an incredible vice president. And then the GOP from the Republican National Convention tweeting out 20 minutes into the debate, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have a history of casting doubt on the coronavirus vaccine. Here's the reality that Dr. Fauci testified, quote, there's no cutting corners from the Trump administration on vaccine development. Also, the GOP tweeting out, as chair of the coronavirus task force, VP Pence helped oversee the greatest mobilization of American industry since World War II. 267 million face coverings, 21 billion gloves, 855 surgical masks.
They nixed a plan to send everybody in America a mask.
From the GOP tonight. And then also we noted that the vice president had guests tonight. He referenced them during the debate. You probably heard him say a businessman, a black businessman from Minnesota. He also had the parents of Ms. Mueller, who was murdered.
I am trying to call
ISIS.
now.
The New York
I've got it
Times,
set up.
Says that the guests for Senator Harris.
It's not
going to
blow you out.
Angela Romero of Salt Lake City and teacher and veteran Deborah.
Hopefully, I
Cottrell
hear if they
of
answer.
West Valley City, Utah.
Ted's in Baltimore. Ted, how did your candidate Kamala Harris do tonight?
Well, I think the first thing that I would say is that if these guys, if the two that were debating tonight were the candidates, the ones that debated last week would not even be on the stage. I think both sides gave great answers. They did dodge a lot, which was disappointing. But in the end, they both were very respectful to each other.
And why are you supportive of the Biden-Harris ticket?
I feel like the Trump ticket the last 4 years, everything hateful in the
have been
in the
horrendous.
that had been hidden has kind of come out. Like the Proud Boys are now out and about, and used to be hidden under the hoods of the KKK. So it's just a very scary place to be in right now.
Thanks for calling in. Irene in Utica, Michigan, undecided. First of all, Irene, are you leaning either way?
Yeah, so I guess from this evening I am undecided, but if I had to pick a candidate, I just would like to say it would be nice to see more of the debates handling policy discussions than just seems like media. And based on the conversation that took place between both candidates, I think as voters,
debates are strictly performative nowadays. I don't know what kind of policy she's
there were a lot
expecting.
of things I think that were said on both sides, and I would probably say on Harris' side that we could find to be false and not true fact. So with that, for me, I would like to
People are so dumb, but especially right-wingers are morons.
rather than just having these moderators pose questions that are just basing it on the current media events within the United States. I'd like to hear more of the facts.
I want to talk to C-SPAN. I'm going to do this every time we have a debate. I really want to get through to C-SPAN.
When you were listening to the debate tonight, did you form a question?
Pence didn't do as bad as I thought he would.
Yes.
Kamala stumbled pretty bad in the
I have
middle.
a huge interest in healthcare policy. So for me, I would definitely want to know.
I think Kamala did best towards the end where she really asserted herself.
That we're going to see going from each candidate in their term. If they are president, lay out the plan, the strategy. What is the health policy going to be? We know we have a huge issue with surprise medical bills, and I think that needs to be addressed, and we need to hear what are the changes that are going to occur.
I want to get through to C-SPAN.
Generalities.
All right.
Take my calls.
For myself, I'd like to hear.
What do you do in Utica?
Actually, I'm a patient advocate, so I work.
We
with
were all
individuals to
trying
help
not to
them
smile at the
resolve
bug on his
medical
head. No, I'm saying
Thank
we
you,
laid
ma'am,
into
for calling
it.
in. Leslie, Franklin, PA. On our
Breed
Trump
Creed had a
text line.
fantastic line about how the fly has to enter a
this evening?
14-day quarantine now.
Very, I would have to say, feeling challenged over this coming election, and definitely
Aren't we all?
disappointed in this debate. Not so much in the candidates themselves, but I was disappointed. You know, I was timing, and I was watching, and there were numerous times.
Disappointing with
where,
the timing?
Kamala Harris did get extended or additional times to speak.
All right.
And I really feel that things should be just even across the board, and I felt that they could have had more.
I think Pence
debate
got
amongst
more.
themselves, and I felt like
It seemed.
the questions were really being driven against Trump and more towards Biden, like, you know, asking
Nobody has mentioned the bug yet.
whether, you know, he was going to leave the White House if he lost the election, and the same thing was not asked of her. You know, is Biden going to accept the results?
That's Leslie in Franklin, PA.
Well, of course Biden's going to accept the results.
Bernice, how did your
He
candidate
hasn't
Kamala Harris do tonight?
I think she
given
did very
anyone a
good.
reason to think he
I've listened to a lot of
wouldn't.
people's responses, and I think it was pretty obvious that
As if the
avoided
Democrats would
answering,
be that brazen
most of the
anyway.
questions. And I think it's unfair to put someone on the spot and accuse them of not answering a question that he asked, not the moderator, whenever he was asked about abortion and almost all of his questions. And instead of answering the questions, he went off on tangents about other things and did not answer the majority of the questions. He talked longer than he was supposed to, and the moderator had to tell him if you actually would time it, and people would actually watch the debate and actually, listen to the questions and how often the moderator had to ask him to stop. He continued to keep talking.
So, Bernice, where
Seriously, he
did Kamala
did.
Harris do well?
Well, I think she did well, placing, explaining what their plan is. I've been watching Biden, and in fact, I've been watching Biden, Trump, and Harrison. I've been in
That's
COVID,
possible.
And I'm
But you
very
know, nothing is
impressed
going to
with
rescue
them
Trump,
actually,
should you know.
given a plan.
Trump dies of COVID
All the
watch.
time, doing a lot of arguing, bullying.
He may not even make it to the next debate.
I think that that Biden and Harris are doing pretty well explaining what their plan is. And as for the protest, my thing about the protest
The plan is
that
just to like shut up and let everybody know they're not Trump.
and yet, and I know a lot of people say this is the media. The media is doing this.
They are
I
playing
watch
on the
president.
Trump
I
fatigue
watch Biden,
going on in
I
the
watch
country.
Harris, and I watch Pence. I watch them, and I see what they say. And people
We
say
get it.
that
You
the
watch
media
them.
is spinning things. When you watch a person and you see what's coming out of their
Oh, he
mouth,
probably did.
and
I
then
mean, I'm
someone
sure the
turns around
doctors
and they say, "Oh, that's
didn't
not true."
didn't tell him to.
The-
He's
the
on
protest-
steroids and he
Trump
feels great. I totally get it. I've done it before. I've been on
They set
steroids.
plans for the COVID and the guidelines, and a day or so later, he incited people to go out and protest. As
We
for
are
the
still
protest,
trying to get through to
people started
C-SPAN.
protesting, and he incited violence for that. So
All right.
I think it's unfair to speak law and order.
Tell you what,
whenever
Bernice, we're going to
you're-
leave it there. Bernice in Cary, North Carolina. Greta Bronner, what have you found?
Reaction from lawmakers tonight. Senator Lindsey Graham, who's facing a tough re-election battle.
Lindsey Graham.
42, an outstanding job by Vice President Mike Pence, showing the difference.
Please give money to Jamie Harrison's campaign in South Carolina.
Mike Pence was calm.
Get rid of fucking Lindsey Graham.
A home run tonight for the Trump-Pence ticket. And Senator Tim Kaine saying he's so proud to have already cast his ballot for Kamala Harris.
This is one of those debates where both sides are going to be able to say,
showing the
we
Trump
won.
administration has utterly failed the American people. Make your plan to vote for her and Joe, he says. And Representative Rick Crawford, a Republican of Arkansas, VP Pence masterfully and methodically debunked the far-left policies of
Oh, I will.
Harris, Joe
I'm going
Biden,
to try to have an
and
actual
so
discussion
for all
with
of
him.
America to see. It's clear that the ideas and future that
I mean,
President
honestly, I
Trump
want
has
to
for
plug
America
the
is
show,
great
and I want to have. I
and will
want to
be
say
the best
something
yet. And Representative Lacey
intelligent
Gray,
to
Democrat of
them.
Missouri. Tonight we saw a remarkable contrast between
Be
Kamala
like,
Harris.
I'm streaming. You're on my show. I'm on your show. Hey.
Mike Pence's complicity
Did
in
you
the
see
Trump
the bug
COVID
on Mike
cover-up.
Pence's
The most
head?
incompetent and deadly failure by any presidential administration in U.S. history.
Anita in St. Augustine, Florida, on our Trump-Pence line. Anita, what did you think of tonight's vice presidential debate?
I'm calling the other line. Should I call the Trump Pence line instead?
I just wanted to say,
Or I mean the
President Trump,
Biden
is
Harris?
still the same president that we all got excited about and put in office, and that he's proven he's done what he said he was going to do. I feel like he's been a great president.
Maybe it will be easier
So
to
you're
get
down
through
there
to
in
the
sunny
Biden
state
line.
of Florida, Anita, are
Yes.
you being inundated with ads on TV?
It
Yeah, I've
doesn't
got 2
seem
mailboxes now.
like there is as much
And
traffic.
and the phone is always ringing. Yes, television. It was a nice break, though, for a little while, but it's back at it.
It's back. Okay. Thanks for
Yes.
calling
No,
in.
just everyone gets out and everyone votes and support our president, whoever that might be.
Janet in Forest Lake, Minnesota, on our Biden-Harris line. And there is Kamala Harris leaving Kingsbury Hall at the University of Utah right there. That's live. Janet?
And see,
what did
this
you
might
think of tonight's
matter
debate?
that I'm calling the Biden Harris line,
thought it was
and
very
she's on the Biden
interesting.
Harris line.
And I felt
When she
bad
hangs
that
up, I might be able to get
constantly
through.
Interrupted Harris, and also the commentator who was telling him, "Okay, we have to go. We have to go." He never listened to her. And the same
So
thing
my time, if I
happened
can
when
get
Trump
through, is
and
right
Biden
when she hangs
were
up.
together. Trump constantly interrupted Biden.
I've done this
Actually,
kind
I
of
thought
shit a
Harris did
lot.
wonderful job. She way outweighed Pence. And I would not vote for Trump or Pence for nothing. I think he's been a liar from day one.
I like this lady. She's
And
feisty.
I think Harris and Biden will make a wonderful president and vice president.
Is Forest Lake a suburb?
That's why I
of
want to
the
say
Twin
it towards the end.
Yes, it's a suburb of St. Paul, Minneapolis.
Cities? Okay.
Well, you should
With
see the
all
kind of
the
shit people
attention
say
that
on C-SPAN,
Minneapolis
man.
got since May, what's your view of that?
I want to have a conversation
that
with him. I want to
is
say something.
That it was sad, but I think protesters should be protesters and not looters. They're making a big problem because when you're a protester, you should be with compassion for somebody who got killed instead of looting stores and things.
No, we need anger,
It's
righteous
no compassion
anger.
for a fellow man. It just kind of ruins the whole thing, and I felt sorry about the whole situation.
Daniel's in Columbia, South Carolina, undecided. First of all, Daniel, why are you undecided?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
God damn it.
Daniel?
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, I got you.
Daniel.
Why are
Sorry,
you
first
undecided?
I want to say, oh, yes, sir. Because
Go to where?
The shortest way to say it is I'm not impressed by either offering. I do want to say thank you and C-SPAN for putting this on.
Boy,
I think
howdy.
they'll do a fantastic job of being very unbiased, giving us information instead of a perspective. As far as the candidates tonight
Well, it's
go,
C-SPAN.
they both, I think Mike Pence is still talking. And Kamala Harris, some of the things that you've heard response-wise, I think have been pretty accurate. I don't think she was respectful. I think he went over his time a lot, and that was disrespectful. But I want to echo what Irene from Michigan said earlier, and what I think is a very popular sentiment is that we want to hear more policy descriptions about having a plan. Well, what does that mean? You keep using the word plan. Well, what is the plan? About things like the fracking question everyone is talking about, there's a lot of diverting. I think if we were going to specifics between the two, I think Pence answered very few of the questions. I don't think Kamala Harris answered any of them. But they both were eager to get into things that were unrelated because, well, the callers that we're getting in now are people...
They both had some prepared statements ready to go. That's for sure.
Most people aren't like that. Most people have other things going on in their lives. So when they tune on to whatever their preferred news is later, they're going to see these things. And I think both candidates know that. And I think both candidates would prefer to have the bits in that get their supporters excited rather than answer the actual questions and give us a more
They're trying to fit so much stuff
would make them
into an hour and a
spend
half.
A lot of time talking about why the other one was worse and not why they themselves were good. And that is the most disappointing thing.
Daniel, you
and
also
then
have
there's
a big
also
Senate race down there in South
the
Carolina.
media
Are you
aspect
undecided in that
that the candidates are wanting to get sound bites in. They're wanting to get these prepackaged jabs that can be used in campaign ads, that can be used on news reports.
However, if that's the race in particular you're curious about, I think in his
I would be for
case,
that.
A lot of people are concerned about how he
I am totally for the Joe Rogan debate idea.
To now being a staunch Trump supporter, and I think they're weighing that against what they perceive as being a very liberal candidate in Jamie Harrison.
I kind of like the idea of a podcaster sitting down and doing a long form 3 or 4 hour.
Change our lives in ways we don't want it to be changed. And the national partisanship has really gotten into that.
It probably shouldn't just be Joe Rogan, though. It should be like Joe Rogan and 2 other people.
And liberal area than most of the rest of the state. So as soon as you leave, the picture is
Sam Cedar.
And we're very friendly to
and
incumbents.
then somebody from the right.
It seems to be more challenging now because Senator Graham has attached himself so strongly to Trump.
Somebody that's not
People are
batshit.
forming opinions on him based on their opinions on Donald Trump.
What do you do in Colombia?
I'm having a hard time coming up with one that's not batshit.
Service industry been doing great with COVID.
And
you're
then
being sarcastic.
Joe,
right?
kind of like the moderator of the moderators.
Have you gone back? Have you gone back to work?
I have at a new place. I lost my old job in February. I went out to Arkansas, and then the pandemic was getting worse, so I came back. I actually had difficulties getting paid for that job. I just got paid for that one. I had to start a new one at
Are
another
bars
place.
reopening? Bars and restaurants reopening in Colombia?
Yes, sir. As of 2 or 3 days ago, the Governor McMaster announced full reopenings with the provision that masks are required and that alcohol has to be served at 11 o'clock at night.
All right. Well, Daniel, thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself.
He seemed pleasantly surprised. He's like, I have a trip to South Carolina.
A couple of tweets for you. Dan Merrick.
I would like to know if the bars are open.
At the end of tonight's debate, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris ended up with nearly the same amount of speaking time, differing by just a few seconds. Take a look at this. Mike Pence, the Vice President, 36 minutes, 27 seconds.
If she hadn't asserted herself there at the end, it might have been a little lopsided.
So they almost had equal time tonight. Reaction from our viewers texting us this morning, or excuse me, this evening. Here's one from Katisha.
They didn't go that
Anderson
long
saying,
after the presidential debate,
undecided,
so
but now I'm sticking with the Dems. Pence couldn't answer, no questions. He went off topic each time. Kamala did evade a crucial question.
It's still
but
ringing
hey,
right
go
now.
Dems. Nicole in Connecticut says, incredible that Pence has the audacity to call out Kamala for not answering a question 5 questions in when he couldn't maintain staying on topic or answering one directly at all. Typical Trump strategy, and Americans are sick of it. And then there's also Jim Newton, North Carolina. We all know neither of them can simply answer a question. And Katie in Maryland, I was very impressed by how both candidates were.
This weekend, I am going to be doing classic debates. Going to be doing watch-alongs. First on Saturday night,
how did your team do?
I am going to be doing Reagan and Carter from 1980, the third debate.
And I wanted to correct some false statements that were made.
Sally Hunt,
I do think he should have been
who is an activist, is going to join me on the show.
Brooksy.
That is going to be a blast. Then on Sunday night, journalist Crystal Carter is going to join me. And we are going to watch the third Hillary-Trump debate from 2016. So both those streams this weekend at 7 o'clock. I'm sorry, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock my time. She didn't answer the pack the court question because she doesn't want to turn off voters like me. Because her answer to the pack the court question is, we don't have the balls to do it. And we know that our left flank is really all about it. There are centrist Democrats who are talking about reinstating the filibuster and shit. So the reason why she doesn't want to answer that question is because they've done a really good job. And I will admit their campaign has been incredibly successful at getting people like me to go, all right, I'll vote for him. God damn, look at the alternative. That was their strategy. It worked. So, of course she didn't answer that question. And even Joe, in his town hall the other night, when he was asked about Antifa, he was sure to call Antifa an ideology and quote the FBI director and not actually condemn rioting and shit. They're making a concerted effort to not turn off the left flank at this moment. So, it's a good strategy, I guess. All right, that'll do it for me. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm Justin Freakin. We'll see you tomorrow night on the Troll Patrol. Live.